Hello everyone. In this video, we will cover the Wordly Wise Book 4, Lesson 8 words. You can follow along at home using your book. Let's get started. Our first word is ancient. Ancient is an adjective and it means very old, of a long time ago. So anything that is old or from long ago in history can be described by using this word ancient. The example says, the ancient city is full of beautiful old buildings. A good example of that would be the ancient city of Machu Picchu in Peru. You can see it here in this picture. There is an ancient city that was built on top of a tall mountain. Another good example would be the pyramids in Egypt. They were made a very long time ago, so we can describe them as being ancient. You might learn about ancient Egypt in one of your classes. The same is true with the Colosseum in Rome. It is an ancient building. And things can also be described as being ancient, such as these coins. I could make a sentence like, the archaeologists found ancient coins under the ground. So anytime you want to describe something old or from a very long time ago, you can use this adjective ancient to describe it. The next word is century. Century is a noun and a century is a period of 100 years. For example, the 21st century began on January 1st, 2001. We often use this word century to describe the current period of time that we are living in, counted in periods of 100, since century means 100. So another example of using this word century is something like a castle. I can say, this castle was built more than 1 century ago, and that would mean it's older than 100 years. Or I could say something like, my great-grandmother lived for over a century. So if your great-grandmother was older than 100 years old, I can say she lived or he lived for over a century. Another good example of using this word would be to say that many things have changed in the last century. So in the last 100 years, the way that we lived has changed a lot, especially because of technology like phones and computers. So whenever you want to talk about something being 100 years old or over or under 100 years old, you can use this word century to talk about that period of time. Our next word is chamber. Chamber is a noun and it is just a room. It's a fancy word we use to talk about a room. And this word is a little bit older, so it might not be that common in everyday conversation anymore, but you might see it used in history books or in other fiction stories. The example sentence says, the queen always has breakfast in her chamber before she comes downstairs. So since a chamber is just a room, like a bedroom here, this is what the sentence might be describing. So maybe the queen has her breakfast in this chamber before she goes downstairs. Another example would be, the castle had a hidden chamber behind the wall. Maybe there was a hidden room in the old castle. So we can use this word chamber to talk about that room, to describe that room. Or I can say, my home has a secret chamber under the stairs. There's a secret room inside of the stairs, under the stairs here, just like in this picture. So any room can be described as being a chamber. And chambers, now with an S, is used to talk about an office or group of offices. For example, lawyers for both sides met in the judge's chambers. So this word chambers, you'll most often see it used specifically when talking about the office of someone like a judge from the courthouse. So their chambers might look like this. It might just be an office with a desk and some chairs in it where the judge and the lawyers can meet. So whenever you hear this word chambers, it will most often talk about something like this. Our next word is descend. Descend is a verb and it means to go or come down. So anytime that something is moving or going down, we can use this verb descend to talk about that action. The example says, the plane slowly descended to 2,000 feet. Whenever a plane is going to land, it will start to descend or it will start to go down. I could also say, we began to descend the mountain before sunset. If you go hiking on a mountain, you have to maybe go back down after you reach the top, or maybe the goal is to go to the bottom, just like in the Grand Canyon. Either way, anytime that you're going down, you can use the verb descend to talk about going down. It's basically a better word to use instead of just saying we went down. Another example of descend might be when you are in an elevator. You push the down button to descend or to go down. And the word descend can also be changed to descendant. And a descendant is one who has certain persons as one's parents, grandparents, etc. And what that means that it is a person, animal, or a thing that comes from someone or something in the past. The example says, the writer Alex Haley was a descendant of Kunta Kinte, who was enslaved and brought to America from West Africa in 1767. So what this sentence is saying is that there is currently a writer with this name, Alex Haley, and she is a descendant. So she is part of the family of this person here who used to be a slave back in the year 1767. So maybe we know about family trees, and if you are here on the family tree, then all of these people who came before you are your descendants. We most often use descendant though to talk about our family from long, long ago. Maybe not the family who is currently alive, but family members who have already died maybe hundreds or centuries ago. So those people can be called your descendants. Another good example would be to say that modern dogs are descendants of wolves. So maybe a long, long, long time ago, before we domesticated dogs, there were only wolves. And then eventually, over many, many years or many centuries, they changed to be more like the dogs that we know today. So we can say they are descendants of wolves. Our next word is entry. Entry is a noun and it means a way in. So it can be a way to get inside, or an entry can also be each separate item in a diary or list. So anything that you are writing at one time in a diary can be called an entry. But let's look at the first definition, a way in. The example says, the thieves gained entry through an unlocked window. So since entry means a way to get in somewhere, this sentence is talking about how the thief was able to go into the house because of the window being unlocked. That would be entry. And since we are using entry as a noun, you're most often going to see it used with this word gained. So it might be something like, you need a ticket to gain entry into the concert. Or also maybe someone was denied entry. That means that they were not allowed to go in. So I could say he was denied entry into the concert because he didn't have a ticket. So we are using this word entry to talk about a way in somewhere, either gaining a way in or maybe being denied a way into somewhere. And the second definition is talking about when you are writing one entry into something. So not everything in the whole book, but this one specific writing that you did would be called an entry. The example sentence says, the next entry in her diary simply said, My brother returned home today after a long absence. So this sentence is saying that on one page of the diary, the only thing that the person wrote was this sentence, and that's where they finished. So that is the entry. And we can also use entry in a different way to mean something that you submit somewhere. So like you submit your art into a contest or maybe your story into a writing contest. That would be also called an entry. So I could say her art contest entry won first place. So her art was so beautiful that she won first place in the contest. And when we're talking about the art, we would just call it her entry. This art is her entry, the thing that she submitted. The next word is interior. Interior is a noun and it means the inside part of something. For example, the sun's interior is about 150,000 times hotter than boiling water. So we're talking about the inside of the sun in this sentence here. So since interior means the inside part of something, I could also make a sentence like, the car's interior had soft seats. So the inside of the car had soft seats. Or I might say, the cave's interior was dark and cool. It was very dark and cold inside of the cave. That's how the interior was. Another example would be, she painted the interior walls blue. So we're talking about the inside walls of the house. They were painted blue. And the last example would be, the box had a colorful interior. So the inside part of this box was very colorful. We can also use interior as an adjective. The meaning is the same. It's still talking about having to do with the inside part of something, but we're using it as an adjective instead of as a noun. The example sentence says, interior doors do not have to be as strongly made as front or back doors. So in this sentence, the word interior is describing the kind of doors. They are not back doors or front doors, they are interior doors, like the doors inside your house when you go to your bedroom. That one is an interior door, or the door to your bathroom, for example. So those doors don't have to be as strong as the other doors. So either way of using this word as a noun or as an adjective, we are using it to talk about inside parts or things inside of something. The next word is intrude. Intrude can be used in a few different ways. We can use it as a verb and it means to come or go in without permission or welcome. The example says, I didn't mean to intrude on you while you were working. So when you intrude, you are coming into a place or a situation where you were not invited or wanted. Maybe you didn't have permission to go into that place, so you are intruding. Maybe if someone is working in the room and you suddenly open the door and try to ask them something, then you are intruding. You are going in without permission. I might also say something like, please knock before entering so you do not intrude. So that way you are not bothering someone or going inside somewhere without permission. That's why we always knock before we go into a place. We can also change this word into a noun and it becomes intrusion. So now we're talking about the act of intruding. And the example sentence says, forgive my intrusion, she said as she came in without knocking. So this word, you might use it in a case where you know that you are going somewhere without permission or you know that you are interrupting someone, but it might be for an important reason. That's why you will often hear this phrase used together, forgive my intrusion. So maybe like in this picture here, you can see that the woman is busy talking on the phone and this person is intruding her. But maybe he has something really important to tell her, something that cannot wait. So he might use this phrase, "Forgive my intrusion," he said, and then tell her something that's very important. And we can also use the word intrude as a noun by changing it to intruder. So now an intruder is the actual person. It's the one who intrudes. And this one here is most often used to talk about someone like a thief or a burglar entering a place without permission. The example says, "People were so unfriendly that I felt like an intruder at Jeff's party." So the example sentence is talking about someone who went to a party, but maybe they were not welcome at the party. They were not friends with anyone at the party. So even though they were allowed to be there, they felt like maybe they were not supposed to be there. But as I mentioned, you'll most often hear intruder used to talk about someone like a thief. So I could say something like, "The alarm went off when an intruder entered the building." The next word is locate. Locate can be used as a verb and it means to find. The example says, "Marta located the missing books in less than an hour." So when you are searching for something and then you finally find that thing, you can say that you located it. So another sentence I could make is, "We tried to locate the missing puzzle piece, but we just couldn't find it." So in this case, we were not able to find it. Or maybe you will make a sentence like, "The map helped us locate the library." So we looked at the map to help us figure out where something was. Locate can also mean to put or to be found in a place. And this example says, "We found out they are going to locate a park across the street from our house." And what this is saying is that they know that there should be a park across the street, but maybe they've never been there before. So they are going to go and find that place because they know that it should be there across the house. So that's where they are going to go look for it. A better example for this might be something like, the cups are located in the cabinet above the sink, because that's the place where they can be found. So that is where you can locate them. Or maybe something like, the shoes are located in the closet by the door. So that is the place where they are put or the place where they can be found. So that's where you need to go if you want to find them. And we can also use locate as a noun. It does change now to location. And a location is the place where something can be found. The example says, "Will you please give me the location of the nearest post office?" So you're asking someone to tell you where something is. I could also say something like, "The location of the treasure was marked with an X on the map here." Or I might say something like, "Our picnic location was under a large tree." So the place where it was under a large tree, like in this picture here. The next word is passage. Passage can be used as a noun, and a passage is a part of a written work or piece of music. The example says, "The final passage of the musical piece brought tears to our eyes." So a passage can talk about part of music or part of a book, any kind of work that is written down. So I could also say something like, "The teacher asked us to read the first passage aloud." So here this student is reading the passage from the book out loud. And passage might be something like a paragraph or a page or a chapter, for example. Or here I could say, "She practiced the difficult passage on the piano." So maybe the difficult page from the music, she was practicing it there on the piano. Passage can also be the act or process of passing, as through time or from place to place. The example says, I wanted to slow the passage of time so my vacation would not end. So we are talking about the movement of time. And in this sentence, someone is on vacation, but they're having so much fun, they don't want their vacation to end. So they want to slow down the passage of time. It means they want it to stop so they can stay on that vacation longer. Another example of passage in this meaning would be, the passage of time made the old photo fade. Just like here, you can see this old photo has changed to this brown tan color and it has many rips on it. So this photo shows that time has passed. So you'll often hear this phrase together, passage of time. Usually people want to slow the passage of time, or they can really see the passage of time in something such as an old photo. The last way we can use the word passage is to mean a way through by which to pass. So it just means like a hallway or the way that you can go through something. The example says, Leon's room was at the end of a long, dimly lit passage. Or you can imagine his room was at the end of a hallway. It's just the way to pass through to get to where you need to go. Or here in this picture, I could say, we walked through a narrow passage between the buildings. You'll most often hear this word passage used in this way when you're talking about a very maybe narrow or small space that allows you to get through to where you're going, such as a passage between two buildings. The next word is portion. Portion can be used as a noun, and a portion is a part or share of the whole. The example says, I got the first portion of my allowance last week. So it's just a part of something, and we most often use it to talk about something like food or maybe money. And portion can also mean a serving or helping as of food. For example, my doctor tells me to eat a 4-ounce portion of fish or chicken once a day. Just like in this picture here. You can see this piece of chicken here is 4 ounces of chicken. So that amount is called 1 portion. I can also make a sentence like, she saved a portion of her sandwich for later. So here the sandwich is cut into 2 parts. Maybe she ate 1 part of it or 1 portion and then saved the second portion for later, because both of these are parts of the whole thing. So each part can be called a portion. Remember, portion means a part of the whole thing. And I can also make a sentence like, I only read a portion of the book last night because I was too tired. So we didn't read the whole book, we only read a portion or a part of it. And I can also make a sentence like, he ate a large portion of pasta. This one is going back to this second meaning where it's a serving, or a serving is also the amount that you eat at one time. Just like we said, 4 ounces is 1 serving of chicken. That's the amount that you should eat at one time. But some people might have very large portions where they eat more than they should at one time. So I can say this is a large portion of pasta. The next word is precious. Precious is an adjective and it can mean very valuable, or it can be much loved. So anything that is valuable as in expensive or costing a lot of money, or something that someone loves or cares about very much is precious. The example says, the necklace was made of diamonds, emeralds, and other precious stones. So here we have an example of a ring that's also made of precious stones. So these stones would be very valuable, so they can be described as being precious. Another example could be, my baby photos are precious to my family. These photos would probably be very loved by a family, so we can describe them as being precious. Another example of something that would be very loved might be something like an old letter that was written by a family member. So I could say, she kept the precious letter in a safe place. And very importantly, we can also use this word precious to talk about things that are important for people, like resources. So I can say clean water is a precious resource. It's very important, very valuable. Everyone needs to have clean water, so it's very precious. Especially since it's something that we can't live without, that's why we would consider water to be something precious. Our next word is quarry. Quarry can be used as a noun to mean a deep pit where stone is cut out of the ground. For example, the rock for this building came from a quarry in Vermont. So this is what a quarry would look like. And quarries are made in places where there are valuable stones, usually stones that can be used to make buildings or to make things like the countertops in your kitchen. And workers here at this quarry, they dig out the stones and then they use those stones to make other things. So this place is called a quarry. So I could make a sentence like, workers cut blocks of stone from the quarry, or trucks carried rocks away from the quarry. And we can also use quarry to mean an animal that is being hunted. So we are talking about a prey. And the example sentence says, the hunters gave up the chase when they lost sight of their quarry. So since quarry would be something like a prey, you can imagine a group of hunters like this that are hunting some animals such as a fox. So I could say, the fox escaped before the hunters could catch their quarry. Or maybe here, I could say the eagle watched its quarry from high in the sky before catching it. So usually eagles will use their very powerful eyes to see their prey or their quarry before flying down to catch it. The next word is ramp. And a ramp is a slanted walk or roadway that connects a lower to a higher place. So ramps are used when you're going from somewhere lower to somewhere higher, just like in this picture here. The example sentence says, because of my wheelchair, I'm glad there is a law that says there has to be a ramp for those who cannot use the steps. So especially for people who are using a wheelchair or who are disabled or even families with strollers, ramps are important since it allows them a way to get into a building easily without having to go up many stairs. We can also use ramp to talk about something like this. I can say the skateboarder rolled down the ramp. So this thing here would be called a ramp. Another example is here. I can say we used a ramp to load the boxes into the truck. So this ramp here helps the worker get all of the boxes into the truck or out of the truck easily. And lastly, this is also something that would be considered a ramp. Often when you're getting onto a highway, there might be a small road like this one here that connects this road to the highway. And this one would be called a ramp. So this ramp might take the cars from the lower road up to the higher highway. The next word is spacious. Spacious is an adjective, and spacious means having lots of room. So anywhere that is large and roomy with plenty of space can be described as being spacious. The example says, the spacious kitchen had a room for a large round table that seated 8. So a spacious kitchen might be one like this. You can see that there is a lot of space. You can have a large table in this kitchen too. Many people can be walking around here, so we can describe it as being spacious. I can also say something like, the dog ran around the spacious yard. This yard has a lot of space, so we can describe it as spacious. Another example would be, the classroom was spacious enough for group activities. So it was a very large classroom with a lot of space. And we can even describe things that are normally small as being spacious if they are a little bit bigger than usual. So I can say something like, the tent was surprisingly spacious inside. Or the tent was so spacious we could fit a whole bed inside. The last word is surface. Surface can be used in a few different ways. As a noun, it means the outside layer or the top. For example, the surface of the moon is covered with craters. So the outside layer of the moon looks like this, and you can see all the huge craters here on the moon. So I can say the surface, or this outside part, is covered with craters. Another example would be here. This is the surface of a table. So I can say the table's surface was smooth and shiny. Surface can also mean an outward look or appearance. For example, he seemed cheerful on the surface, but I knew how sad he was inside. So people might often look one way on the outside, but then feel a different way inside or in their brains. So we can use this word surface to describe how they are on the outside. That's why the sentence said he seemed cheerful on the surface. So here on the outside, he seems cheerful, but I knew how sad he was inside. So in his mind, he was very sad. So when you want to describe how someone looks on the outside, you might use this word surface to talk about that. And it will most often be used together as this phrase, on the surface. Surface can also be used as a verb, and it means to rise to the top of a body of water. For example, the latest submarines can stay underwater for weeks before they need to surface. So the submarines don't need to come up to the top of the water for a long time. So that would be the surface, the top of the water. I could also say something like, whales need to come up to the surface to breathe air because they cannot stay underwater forever since they are mammals. Or you might say that a swimmer came to the surface for air. And when we say this word surface, since it means a body of water, we are specifically talking about the top of the water. And that's all for this video. We went over the Wordly Wise Book 4, Lesson 8 words. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time. Bye!